This is the game I've been looking forward to doing most since I started my channel. For this reason, this video is going to be a bit different than my usual pre-match reviews because of how much this game means to me. For me, it's by far the biggest game in English football, without a shadow of a doubt. And although you can go around the country and hear fans from Birmingham say Villa versus Birmingham City is the biggest, or in London you'll hear West Ham and Millwall fans point to how violent their game gets every time they play. I mean, even Newcastle and Sunderland, while I was living up there, they thought theirs was the biggest, or at least one of them, because of how passionate they are up there. I even had this argument online years ago under another private account with a Blackburn fan who was so defiant on his stance that no derby in English football matches the passion in a Burnley-Blackburn rivalry. But for me, all that is local fans having that pride and that passion for their own big game and doubting whether fans in other parts of the country truly match what so many local fans on both sides of the divide experience in their corner of the world when the big two local clubs finally clash. And there are fans within the Liverpool and Man United fan bases too who each probably view the Merseyside derby or the Manchester derby as the bigger game than the Liverpool United game because it means more to them on a personal level. The fact is though, opinion aside on what game means more to you personally or whether you think Everton or City are Liverpool's United's biggest rivals and that Liverpool United are just a competitive anomaly by contrast, there is absolutely no doubt that the biggest game in English football in terms of scale is this fixture, Liverpool versus Manchester United. Sir Alex Ferguson once said Liverpool was the first game he'd look for at the beginning of every season when the fixture list was announced, and that always struck a chord with me because I always do that, even before he made that comment, and I still do it to this day. This is the game where England's two most successful and best supported football clubs go head to head. It's also far beyond just Liverpool Football Club versus Manchester United Football Club. There's a long-standing social tension, a divide that exists between the cities that transcends football completely. When Wayne Rooney first moved to Manchester United from Everton, he got an absolute dog's life off the Evertonians on his return to Goodison Park. I couldn't find the footage, but I remember watching on the coverage before the game, even the stewards and the club officials were making sly digs at him. The Sky cameras caught a female employee saying something to him on the pitch that made him turn around and tell her to fuck off.
Your sensitive bone, it's on my head.
That level of abuse never left him and it culminated in him kissing the United badge after scoring at Goodison Park. You have to understand this all went far beyond Everton's best player leaving their club. You ask any Evertonian and the reason he got so much abuse in 2004 is because of where he went and because he made that move across the East Lancs. There's a divide between Scousers and Mancs in general and it's exacerbated to its highest extent when the two biggest clubs of each city go head to head. I wanted to go back to where it all began and go through the history of it all, but there's so much I want to say in this video. I'm going to leave most of the history for another project I have planned in the future if my channel makes it and I can do this full time. But I can't help but smile when I think of this fixture and all the legendary names, teams and achievements the two clubs have produced throughout their history. I mean, what other two clubs can boast the names that ours have? We've also won 19 titles in 6 European Cups. They've won 20 titles in 3 European Cups. We're the most successful club in the country. They're the wealthiest club in the country. I mean, there's so much history, success and popularity between the two clubs that there is simply no other fixture in this country that comes even remotely close. It's a battle between two giants vying to be the number one in English football, and that will go on for as long as English football exists. Spain has the Clásico between Barca and Real Madrid. Scotland has the Old Firm between Rangers and Celtic. Argentina has the Super Clásico between Boca Juniors and River Plate. This is England's biggest game. And when they play, we even outdo all other rivalries when it comes to viewing figures. You may have seen me post this picture before. It shows the 2015 viewing figures between these two sides when they play. And as you can see, it blitzes even the Clásico between Madrid and Barca. And to put that into perspective, the NFL Super Bowl is America's biggest sporting fixture by a mile. And as you can see, the viewing figures are laughable by comparison. And that's a final. These figures for the Liverpool United games are just for a regular calendar league game. So imagine what they'd be if we reached the FA Cup final, or better yet, the Champions League final.
Shit.
However, that brings me on to the strangest part of this rivalry, the most confusing and infuriating part of the Liverpool versus Manchester United story. A Champions League final between Liverpool and United would be rather unlikely because somehow, for reasons very difficult to explain, despite dominating English football for 70 years between them, these two giants of the English game have never truly competed at the same time together. One has always dominated the other, and that stretches all the way back to when both clubs began their journey to be the first to dominate the country. Matt Busby was the first to build a team who won numerous titles and took his team to the continent and became European champions. But his star began to die out just as Liverpool's began to rise under Shankly, who set the foundations and instilled a template and philosophy that would outlast him. And a succession of his legendary backroom team, most notably Bob Paisley, took the hot seat one by one and took this club to heights that nobody in this country could ever dream of. In over 20 years, they set the template for all future legendary teams to follow for what is needed to become a giant of the English game. Dominate at home and make sure you win in Europe. United, meanwhile, struggled with life after Busby and were nowhere in sight when the boot room philosophy was king. But when the 90s arrived, and with it came Sky Sports and modern football, United saw that opportunity and took full advantage, cashing in on their popularity. And with Liverpool's success as the template and a hungry and demanding Scottish manager at the wheel, his genius in United's financial template took them soaring past Liverpool, whose previously successful methods became outdated and obsolete in this new age. United reached Liverpool's heights on the pitch and blitzed them off it, and it took Sir Alex Ferguson's resignation to knock them down a peg and for Liverpool to start improving their recruitment and financial structure before we, finally, have climbed our way back to our perch looking down on United. As things stand now, Liverpool are above United as a team, but still some way behind them as a club in terms of the financial structure. They're still wealthier than us, but in fairness, we are far better run than they are. And I have my theories why, but for now, we all know our biggest rivals for trophies right now are City, not United. And in United's heyday, it was Arsene Wenger's Arsenal teams and Jose Mourinho's Chelsea. Rafa's Liverpool offered a brief threat, but although we had the starting 11, we never really had the squad to challenge for the league. But what frustrates me is, can you imagine how exciting life would be if Liverpool and United were the two best teams in the country?
Whoa, I've not seen...
Imagine the excitement of an annual title race and the very real possibility of a Champions League final with them, the way that Barca and Real Madrid have enjoyed throughout their history. I mean, it honestly is mind-blowing how in almost all of our entire lives, these two great clubs have never truly competed at the same time. The closest we've come was 2 out of the 4 times the two clubs have finished as first and second in the league, and out of those 4 times were the only 2 genuine title races the clubs have competed in with each other. One was the 63-64 season, and in fact the following 3 seasons too, even though they both didn't finish first and second. But it was just when Busby's United was in its final stretch as a force and when Bill Shankly's Liverpool had just began its rise. That brief period of time when we swapped the league title for 4 years straight is the only time the two clubs have genuinely competed at the top together as equals.
That's not good.
The closest we've come since then was in 2009 when we both finished first and second again, and despite Liverpool destroying United 4-1 at Old Trafford in the final stretch of the season, which rocked them a little and briefly made it look like Liverpool might catch them and pip them for the title, you still felt it wasn't a true title race, and United under Fergie's experience managed to hold on and still comfortably won the league by 4 points. And if you're curious, the other times when we finished first and second were during Liverpool's heyday in the 80s, and obviously no United team genuinely threatened those Liverpool teams any more than Liverpool's 90s teams ever threatened United during that period of time.
Which was the style at the time.
Fast forward to today, and honestly, we're as far apart as we've ever been, despite the talent in both sides and the league standings the last few years. After spending my entire childhood, adolescence, and early adulthood watching United dominate us and slowly but surely match or even overtake our proud records, it's been refreshingly beautiful to see a small amount of karma finally find its way around and see Liverpool in a position where we've been competing for and even winning the title and the Champions League, while United are clinging on to relevancy for dear life with mediocrity and a decades-long title drought of their own threatening unless they book their ideas up. But honestly, as much as I'm enjoying it, there is a small part of me that wishes it was United rather than City we were going toe-to-toe with every year, now that Klopp has booted our asses back up to the pinnacle of English and European football again. I'd have loved to have seen Jurgen Klopp go head-to-head with Fergie. I really would. I mean, can you imagine what that would have been like?
Nice. Nice.
But as long as Liverpool are competing at the top and capable of winning titles in Champions League occasionally, I can be content for now. But as far as Man United post-Fergie are concerned, I do not understand that being the one club in the entire modern era who had the gift of foresight in that they knew they weren't sacking their manager and that they could actually plan and prepare and lay the groundwork for when that man would leave, did not take the opportunity and instead just seemed to wait until his last year, pick a replacement manager and expect everything to continue being as it was.
That doesn't make sense.
If they'd looked at Bill Shankly's template and then in the last couple of years of Fergie's management employed an assistant and an entire backroom team made up of ex-players or other young and talented names coming through at the time to eventually replace him and give them control of like the youth academy, as that's always been the future, and allow them to recruit and build a young team coming through the ranks who are used to this backroom team's leadership and tactics, you'd have had the transition done in-house and ready to take over just in time for Fergie deciding to call it a day. Instead, because the Glazers took over and David Gill had gone, their balance between the commercial side of the club and the football side of the club had tipped towards the commercial side of things. Money was prioritised over football and it's harmed them ever since. Rather than focusing on building a new team, they were more concerned with shirt sales. You seem to get the feeling that recruiting big names that would sell shirts was their job, and it was the manager's job to forge these players into a team.
Yes, that's right. You see, there was a tiny flaw in the plan.
What was that, Tom?
It was bollocks.
That's not how it works. Teams are built on the players being comfortable in their environment and having a shared personality and team spirit, not a clash of unhappy personalities, which is what we saw when Mourinho and Pogba went at it, and also when Di Maria's wife slagged off England after they'd left. United have been a mess since Fergie retired, desperate to prove they're still a big club who can still attract the very best by buying all manner of random big names who can, yeah, they can sell shirts, but not necessarily play together. And after years of getting it wrong while their two biggest rivals are enjoying life at the top, having done it the right way, they finally committed to a project with more focus on the football side of things. They've recruited far more shrewdly, they're being patient with the manager and allowing him time to build his team, which would sound like it should be a concern for us as Liverpool fans, except it isn't, because they've even fucked this intelligent and brave approach up by picking the wrong manager to back. I don't understand this recent trend of having faith in ex-players before they've earned it. Not every ex-player is Pep Guardiola, who seems to have kickstarted this trend after his time at Barcelona. Just because they're ex-players, it doesn't mean they're qualified, and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is a fine example of this. I mean, look, Ollie is still a football man and a competent football man. He's played the game, he knows the game, and he's been given time with Manchester United's considerable resources, and he's recruited an extremely talented squad there as a result. But he's got no experience in managing teams like this at the top, none at all. I mean, look, if you give me the best violin making factory in the world, well staffed, well funded and so on, and give me 3 years to build the best violin in the world, I might be able to do it, but it doesn't mean I'm going to be able to play that violin any better than someone who's been playing at the top level for decades. Jurgen Klopp and Pep Guardiola were also given time and backing, but they're qualified and experienced at managing top teams. Jurgen Klopp was only qualified to come here because he'd won titles and reached the Champions League final with Dortmund, despite the budget restraints, and he was only given the job there because he'd proved himself in Germany first, punching well above his weight by taking his beloved Mainz into the Bundesliga, which they'd never done before. He worked his way up and earned a crack at the big time. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has not. His managerial career has been below par at worst, and at best, average. He's not there on managerial ability, he's there because he scored a Champions League winning goal in '99. I ask you, would you give Divock Origi a chance at management just because he scored against Tottenham in 2019? Now, there's no taking away that he's recruited a team as talented as any in England, but with a novice manager in charge, they'll never reach the heights Manchester United have traditionally aimed for, the heights that Liverpool and City are currently at. It's been fascinating watching Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher tackle this issue, because even the Man United fan channels have admitted Carragher's been more right over this than Gary Neville. Ollie is too nice and too inexperienced to be a top manager. I mean, he's still being backed financially. £50 million players in every position and on the bench. You've got an abundance of genuine top-class talent, dominant personalities as leaders, and talented youth throughout the squad. All the ingredients needed to be a successful side, yet they seriously look like they lack organisation and work ethic, and that's down to the manager.
Excuse me, I have to step out for a minute.
But all in all, I'm enjoying watching us lord it over Man United as they go year after year without a title, just like we had to for decades while they rubbed our noses in it. And although they've recruited brilliantly this last transfer window, they still look as far away as ever from actually challenging for the title. And that's because they don't have a manager that can compete with ours. And I can't help enjoying it. They made my childhood, my adolescence and my early adulthood fucking miserable when it came to football. So I'm enjoying finally seeing the tables turned and see us miles better than United, regardless of what happens in a one-off game against them. But I also can't help shake off this one overriding thought. How fucking exciting would life be if Liverpool and Man United properly went toe-to-toe against each other? And I mean properly. Both at their peak, both in their prime, both at their apex, going at it year after year, buying the best players and going for the Champions League and the title every single year. That is what I want most as a Liverpool fan. I know it might sound a little suspect wanting Man United to do well, but I want that adrenaline rush, I want that fear, I want that possible ecstasy of beating them to the title or in a European final. I mean, we can all dream, can't we?
Let's agree to disagree.
But back to reality and back to today. We're playing them on Sunday and form usually goes out the window for games like this. We're on fire, they are not, but they're at home and Ollie is fighting for his job. And we were a little rattled last time out against a motivated team on their own turf with an animated manager on the sidelines. But having said that, Atletico are a well-oiled machine with a never-say-die attitude, totally united behind their manager. I think of them as like a Leicester City on steroids. Man United are anything but. They lack inspiration, they lack organisation, they lack work rate, but they're still a threat. Marcus Rashford has an infuriating habit of scoring against us every time he fucking plays against us. Every time that little cunt plays against us, he scores. And Ronaldo always comes to the fore in every big game. He wants the headlines, he wants the glamour goals, and you don't get bigger goals in England than beyond this fixture. For these reasons, I do think Man United are going to get a couple of goals, but we're still superior to them. Salah, in the form and the mood he's in, is going to want to pit himself against Ronaldo. He's going to want to outdo him, and having him and Ronaldo going at it, trying to outdo each other, is going to create a hell of a spectacle in my opinion. And for that reason, I'm going for a 4-2 Liverpool win and a classic. But I'd love to know what you guys think of this fixture. Do you disagree completely with me wanting Liverpool and United to be going toe-to-toe with one another? Do you prefer them being a joke while we're well out of the way, winning titles in Champions Leagues while they can do nothing but watch on autistically screeching about it? And what are your predictions for the game too? Let me know in the comments below. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm a new channel at this point, so any and all interactions are very much appreciated. If you're already subscribed, thanks again for your support. It means the absolute world to me. This wasn't quite the video I had planned, but what I originally had planned was too similar to the other project I had planned in the future, so I decided to leave most of what I was going to say for that project in the future. But I still hope you enjoyed this anyway. Also, I'd love to know what you guys thought of the Atletico game too. I mean, what a fucking pelling Simeone was. Great win though. If we beat them at Anfield and Milan can avoid defeat in the other game, we finished top with 2 games to spare, which would be amazing. Anyway, for now, I hope you enjoy the rest of your week, and I hope you're looking forward to the game on Sunday as much as I am. Take care, lads and lasses, and I'll see you after it. Ta-ra.